Dude, if this movie was a secret tie-in to the legendary monster universe, that would have been really cool. But it's a movie about imagery, so no phone allowed! Greetings everyone and welcome back to another episode of First Thoughts. This time around I'm talking about Annihilation. Annihilation. So given by the title of this video, this is a non-spoiler review, so don't worry, I won't be spoiling much at all. I'm gonna try not to spoil much at all. Yes, I've said that a dozen times already. Most things in the second act and definitely the third act I'm gonna try to be very minimal about. Not gonna give away the overall message or the big bang at the end, if you will. Gonna give you some of my basic impressions, pros, cons, what have you, and how I feel about the film overall. So let's get to it, shall we? Directed by Alex Garland, which if you recognize that name, he directed Ex Machina, another film I haven't seen. I have not seen many films, folks, and I'm trying to change that this year. Based on the book by Jeff Vandermeer. I have not read the book, so I'm not that familiar with the original source material. But I have heard the author's name, and I hear there's some good credibility to him. However, I'm going to be critiquing this movie solely on the merits of the film itself. So if some points I bring up apply to the book, but not to the movie, or vice versa, it doesn't really mean anything to me. I judge a film based on itself and whether or not the world is concise, believable, and compelling. That's all I need, as long as it's a good, believable, and fun movie. So to start off with my pros, the first thing I gotta say that I really enjoyed about this movie was the visual effects in the environment. As simple as it was, I thought it was really cool how they kind of applied the shimmer, as they called it, a veil, if you will, that kind of messes with the organic life and animals and plants. And the way they portrayed that in the film was really interesting. They kind of gave it one of those bubble type look, you know, whenever you have like those little bubbles, you go and they make bubbles that kind of look like rainbowy and all that stuff. That was pretty much like the hidden tone in almost every shot. With this rainbow-esque, if you will, kind of gives off a prism vibe, if you will, which actually kind of plays a very interesting metaphorical part in the whole movie. And I don't know if it was practical effects or maybe part of it was CG, but the plants itself, just like the way how lush they were and how detailed and almost alien-like they are, really helps sell the setting of this movie, of what's exactly going on within the shimmer itself. The next thing I want to add to this is the lighting, which it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint exactly, but the way Alex Garland, the director of the film, I think I already said that, set up each and every one of his shots, especially before we go inside the shimmer, it gave me kind of a retro vibe to it. You can almost argue saying like it's an 80s kind of cinematography in terms of the lighting, the palette and all that. But for some reason, it still felt like a modern setting to me, but it had that wondrous tone to it. Not quite like Black Panther wondrous tone, but you could definitely tell the sci-fi roots in how it was shot. I just love how soft and tangible everything felt. It felt like a real place, side by side with the visual effects and what could be practical effects or like physical actors. It felt like a real breathing world, and I gotta give props to Alex Garland for that. I thought that was a fantastic job doing that. So the other pros, which I technically should have gone over first, but I don't really want to give away much of the film, is some of the characteristic traits, or tics as you will, some of the main cast has. For example, Dr. Ventress, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. I really liked how down to earth she was in the film. I don't really want to give away exactly why she was this way, but I kind of like the fact that nothing really seemed to surprise her. And everything was just kind of a rinse and repeat procedural thing that honestly kind of beaten her down. Like, she's been through the crowd before. She knows that shit can go bad one way or another, or she's got to learn to work with other people, but she doesn't quite bullshit them, for lack of a better word. And you can really tell those mannerisms in her, the way she enunciated herself, conveyed the way she spoke to other characters. And even she did like a couple like little tells with her hands. Like, you could see that she was thinking, she was almost calculating. Now, I'm not gonna say whether she's an antagonist or just a support character, but just something about her I really thought was engaging. Maybe it's because just sometimes with action films or thrillers or whatever you want to call them, it's kind of refreshing to have someone who doesn't quite really jump the gun or go into fight or flight mode, but someone who's kind of calm and collected initially on basic events and just can kind of maintain control no matter what scene she's in, at least most of the time. I'm trying to think of other character tics that I really liked in this movie, but it's kind of hard for me to really think of much that stand out, because I mean, this is called First Thoughts. I'm trying to give you my impressions without spoiling the film, but the film itself is really worthy of discussion, whether good or bad. You're gonna kind of have to watch to find out. I mean, to sum up real quick, Natalie Portman playing Lena, I think she did a fine job. I mean, she actually does have like a really human story, for lack of a better term. She does harbor a certain amount of guilt, which as you watch the film kind of makes sense to you on why she's doing certain things, and I actually thought that really channeled through, at least well enough for someone like myself. Also, playing Natalie Portman's husband is none other than Oscar Isaac. Otherwise, for those who are blockbuster summergoers or casual moviegoers, might recognize him as Poe Dameron from the Star Wars movies. I will say Oscar Isaac was kind of a waste in this movie a little bit. I get what kind of character he was supposed to play, but the movie kind of just jumps straight into the overall story, where Kane, the character that Oscar Isaac is playing, is found after a year being lost, and this is at the very beginning of the movie. Lena, Kane's wife, is trying to find out what happened to him while he went inside the Shimmer, the area of which shit's going down. So for most of the film, he was kind of a vegetable, for lack of a better word. Like, there's a mystery of why he is the way he is right now. We got some snippets of who he was before all this, and I don't know. I mean, I think most of the focus was on the Shimmer, what's going on within the weird aura. I'd like to get into the other characters. I mean, Tessa Thompson is in this movie. You probably recognize her from Thor Ragnarok. She's a very talented actress. I did like her character in this initially, but again, I'm having trouble trying to come up with distinguishable character traits that made each person unique without really giving away much about the film. Man, this is a lot trickier than I thought it'd be. How about I just jump straight into the cons, because this film I think is going to be very divisive amongst casual moviegoers. So the first thing I didn't really like about this movie was some of the action sequences. As you can tell by the trailer, it seems like animals are mutating within the Shimmer, the aura if you will. And when some of the gunplay and the shoot down happens within the film, it kind of lacked that thrill if you will, which is weird considering this is a sci-fi thriller. And there was a couple like fist on fist kind of fighting, if you will, like the physical between human and human kind of thing without giving away too much, but you don't really feel the stakes in it. I don't know if it was much of like the visuals or the sound effects or the choreography. It's hard for me to say. It didn't really grab me. I've seen John Wick, assassin, crime type thing, and when you see characters fighting for their lives, most of the time you feel it. But in this one, it kind of feels like it was lower priority for the filmmaker. At least that's the impression I had. Maybe you had a different one if you've seen the film, so. The other negative for me, which I kind of want to get into, is the pacing seems a little off at times. The beginning of the movie kind of starts out pretty well. I mean, it throws you right into the action. It tells you, yes, Lena's husband has been missing for almost a year now. People are trying to socialize with her, but she's kind of become a shut-in. But then you quickly find out, oh, Kane is back. Oh, Dameron. But something's going on. He was working at the Shimmer and he's the only one to survive. What is this? But then there are times between when she discovers the Shimmer and then actually goes into the Shimmer, it kind of gets slow in some parts. And especially the finale. I personally thought the finale kind of was paced oddly, and this entire film is supposed to be like one big imagery type metaphor kind of film. It's supposed to make you think, which I get a lot of the undertones. Believe me, I'm not as dumb as I look. But sometimes it just kind of lingered on a lot of this stuff for like a little bit too long, Or maybe we were trying to soak in more of the visuals, but by the time I understood truly what was going on, I was ready to move on to the next thing, and it just took its sweet time getting there. Now, the biggest negative I personally had with this film was pretty much the lack of expansive world building. Again, this movie is supposed to be like one big metaphor. It's supposed to be very straightforward, yet complex in what kind of message it's trying to give. It acts as kind of like what happens if nature itself is suddenly thrown into chaos, but in kind of an orderly chaos, meaning not everything's going to be destroyed, but things are changing. How does that affect not only the biology of the living things around you, but how does it affect you mentally? And there's a lot of interesting undertones there, but for some reason, it didn't really want to focus on the science, if you will, or the ecosystem that it's trying to develop, and it focuses more on the human side of the story. Which is all fine and dandy. I guess this is where the real subjectivity comes into play for me. I love world building. The more lore and the more rules that you create for your fictional world and make it intricate, complex, yet simple. You set rules that make sense, that abide by the characters that have to follow it. To me, that's much more of a compelling world and a story opportunity. But again, this movie just kind of gives you that a little bit of what the Shimmer is doing, but then kind of just lets you know, by the way, there will be some trippy imagery in this movie, and it's trippy. Here's some reasons why it could be happening, but we'll be a little vague about it, or we'll be a little crazy about it. This is where the divisiveness comes into play. I love science. I love world building, physics, and things like that. I may not enunciate or know the proper terms, but by God, I love them. I gotta say, that was pretty disgusting. I wanted to learn more about the Shimmer. I wanted to see how much this world would change, and maybe would it change for the better, or would it become more exotic, more chaotic? But again, the way it's presented, it might be kind of a turnoff for most people. So I'm sorry if I sound kind of vague in what I'm trying to say here. It's a really strange movie. It made sense to me on what it was trying to tell, or what kind of world it was trying to create. It left me wanting more, but not so much on the human side, but more on the world building side, and I don't think that was its priority most of the time. So kind of a loss for me, but at the same time, if you're not really interested in either that and more on the human side, they kind of work hand in hand. And if you just can't get into one of them, you might have trouble getting into the human side, because it just breaks your suspension of belief. And I think that's where most people are going to get lost with this movie. It's just going to be not super pretentious, but probably enough for you to go, I might skip this and look at Cliff Notes or honest trailers or something to abridge it for me. It kind of feels like that kind of movie, which is a real shame, because I thought there was a good foundation here. Like I said, if this was connected to the kaiju films, Godzilla, Kong, or something like that, I could see the Shimmer creating something like Mothra or Destroyer or some other Godzilla-like monster, which would have been really cool, but that would kind of take away from the director's vision of what kind of story he was trying to tell. I'm just saying that as a side thing, not so much like an actual thing that would happen in this movie. It's not gonna happen. Overall, folks, I kind of thought the movie itself was like it wasn't boring, but it wasn't fun. It was interesting, but I wasn't compelled to learn more, if that makes any sense. Again, just If you want to check it out for yourself, then please do. And if you already have saw the film, let me know what you thought of the film itself in the comment section below. Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? I'm open to hearing any perspective on this film, because I'm really fascinated to see how people react to this. Alright guys, I'm gonna wrap up here. If you enjoyed this little non-spoiler review, be sure to give this video a like, and be sure to subscribe for more reviews just like this one. And until next time, to be continued.